Check, 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 check. Check, 1, 2. Check, check, check. Check, 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 check. Check, 1, 2. Check, 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 1, 2. Check. Y. Check, check, 1, 2. 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 Check. Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check. Check, check, 1, 2. 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, 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 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, check, check. Check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2. 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Check, 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 check. 1, 2. Check. 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, check, check. 1, 2. 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, check, check. Check, 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 check. Check, 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 1, 2. Check, 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 check. Check, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Well, check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2.
At least the three of us can be up here. Okay. Is this his guy? No.
Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, 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 check, 1, 2.
So let me tell you why.
Check, 1, 2.
I had no idea this was coming. I thought we were going to be the only show.
Gentlemen?
Hello there. All right, so this microphone is
Testing.
Check,
testing.
Yob. Is this working? Mike,
What's
is this
disgusting?
Working? This working?
Testing. What's disgusting? This one isn't even working.
Is this working? Yeah.
Everybody ready for the debate? Everybody ready for the debate?
The real debate is out here.
He knows what's going on. And hey, Paul.
All right, thanks. Thank you.
Does this even work? I guess it is working. No. We were just. Good to see you, man. No, we're about to start.
Hey, Mike, you're all set? You know what to do?
Hello.
All right.
15.
It goes on automatically.
Are you in a special designated area or no?
Trash.
Anyway, the real fireworks could be.
Trash. Be careful of the side.
I have a feeling that the mic is going to shut
Check, 1, 2. Check, 1,
You don't have
2.
to do
Check,
nothing,
check,
right?
1, 2, 1, 2. Check,
You
1,
don't even have to
2.
point the camera? Oh, great. Leave it
Check,
all
1, 2.
on. Just don't turn it off. Okay.
How do they do it? A box of guy, man. No, like this. Like.
There we go.
By the way, Christian Moreno, Paul Mulshine from the Star Ledger. He's a student government representative. And news class.
Yeah.
I never understood the difference. What is the difference?
Student government's like students.
You're the board of trustees of the university? Oh, no shit. I've been selling it. Sorry.
If you look on that thing,
Hey, brother.
right on that.
No, I know.
Bill Brennan.
Got a lot of Murphy's people here. Well, I'm glad the police didn't come forward. Said, "Yeah, I hope you guys."
I was a little worried. I'll be honest with you. You know, I think we're totally fine now. You know.
Yeah. Well, I think we ought to get started. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Good. Very good.
Hey, Bill, you mind taking a picture?
Sure. You got a camera handy, or you want?
Your phone, if you don't mind. My phone's live streaming.
Thanks for everything. I don't want to forget to tell you that. Smile and say, "Save the planet." There you go. I took a bunch.
Thank you. Hey, Bill, get up.
This is going to be used against me at some point, I can tell. Or against you.
You're wearing a Trump shirt. You're wearing a Trump shirt.
You know what? Forget it. Cheap shots don't work on me. They've been taking cheap shots.
Who's been doing that to you? Who's been taking? Oh, yeah.
T-Neck took cheap shots at me for 10 years.
You're right. Cheap shots never work. Never work.
By the way, you were a cop enough. How many chances did you have to lock up the mayor in that time? Hey, Mark! Nice of you to join us.
Hey, Bill. What time is it? I think we want to get started.
Well, Mark just got here. It's 3 up.
Okay.
Mark, we needed you here sooner.
Mark, thanks for coming. Thanks, buddy.
right,
Good to see you. Ready, Joe?
Grab your
Hey,
mic.
Joe.
Let me see what's question.
Ready?
Check 1 2.
How you doing?
Mark. Oh, you. I'll have to.
How you doing? Joe Rulo, how are you?
Good. We were worried.
Yeah, Mark, we were sweating a little.
All right, I want a picture with all you guys.
Why won't you negotiate? We won't take it anymore. Why won't you negotiate? Woo! They started 6:30. We're starting now. You gotta start.
Yeah, we're starting. Yeah, let's go. Okay, Joe. We're ready there, Joe.
Testing. Testing. I don't know.
You got to hold it close to your mouth.
Really? I don't even know it's even. Hello. Hello.
Go now.
Wait. My microphone is.
Testing.
Testing. Good.
How's my level?
A little bit more.
Hello.
A little bit more on mine. A little bit more. 1, 2, 3.
So
Good.
test,
Harry, can you
test,
hear me?
test, test,
Okay.
test, test.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Street Corner Debate for the Outcast.
All right, test. Turn me up a tiny bit, please. Test, 1, 2, 3. All right, good. All right, so we are going to start in just a minute. All right, we're going to start in just a minute, letting you know, letting people out in there in cyberspace know. We're starting in just a minute.
Fair contract. Now. Fair contract. Now. Fair contract.
Trump just sacked Comey.
That's an independent
Trump just sacked.
Ladies and gentlemen, quiet down. I have an important announcement. James Comey was just fired by Donald Trump. This just in. Breaking news
All right.
from the debate.
All right, I think we're ready. I feel like I don't know. I guess it's okay. Good level?
I
Good
guess
level?
he
You
was
hear me
about
out
to get
there?
arrested.
All right, so I think we should start. Good sound out there? You can hear me okay? All right, good. All right, welcome. All these four gentlemen are here for a very special reason. So, in the race for New Jersey governor, there are 6 Democrats and 4 Republicans. Each of these 10 candidates have earned their way onto the ballot by gathering 1,000 signatures all across the state of New Jersey. Behind me, behind us, you will see the Stockton University Campus Center Theater.
this is where the first of two New Jersey ELEC debates are going to start in about an hour. ELEC, for those out in cyberspace, stands for Election Law Enforcement Commission. But only 4 of the 6 Democrats and only 2 of the 4 Republicans are on that stage tonight. The only way to participate in the ELEC debates is to reach $430,000 in individual donations. That is the threshold required by ELEC in order to qualify for public funds. In the general election, for every dollar donated to the candidate, the New Jersey government matches it with an additional 2, up to a maximum of $6 million. A condition of accepting these public funds is that you must attend these 2 debates, so the public can hear your views. However, there is another way to get into this debate, and that is simply by writing a check for $430,000 into your campaign's bank account. Although this does not qualify you for public funds, it does allow you to walk onto that stage. Which brings us here tonight. We are outside of the Campus Center Theater with 2 Democrat and 2 Republican candidates who were unable to reach that or afford that $430,000 threshold. These 4 candidates believe that the New Jersey ELEC's rules are not about informing the public. They're not about contributions to a campaign. They're about rich people buying their way in and excluding those who cannot afford it. So these 4 candidates have decided to create a debate of their own. We are calling it the Outcast Debate. We are grateful that you are all here with us tonight, and we would encourage you to communicate with the candidates by tweeting with the hashtag Outcast Debate. My name is Jeff Epstein. I'm co-founder and lead correspondent for Citizens Media TV on Facebook, which is where we are broadcasting now live. Our specialty is to live stream events that corporate media does not choose to. We'd like to call ourselves journalism for the ignored. Now, we are a progressive news organization, but tonight is not about our views. Tonight is about the views of these candidates. So let me introduce them to you now. First, we have Mr. Joseph Rudy Rulo. Republican Joseph Rudy Rulo was born in Nutley, New Jersey. He graduated Toms River High School South, earned an associate's degree at Ocean County College, and a bachelor's of arts in political science at the College of New Jersey. He now lives in Little Egg Harbor in Ocean County, where he has been an entrepreneur for over 2 decades and is an actor in TV and feature films. Mr. Rulo has also been a volunteer fireman and worked on a first aid squad. Mr. Rulo, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
All right, Democrat Bill Brennan brings a wealth of experience to the state of New Jersey. Known for his direct and forthright style, he is a breath of fresh air in the political climate that too often skirts and points fingers. Mr. Brennan is passionate about open government, public safety, environmental conservation, renewable energy, civil rights, and income equality. He is a tireless advocate for the public and his unmatched record of fighting corruption at every level of government. Move the camera. Move the camera if necessary. Mr. Brennan.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for being
here.
this for us.
All right. Democrat Mark Zinna.
Hello.
Mark Zinna is a 2-term councilman from Tenafly, New Jersey, where he serves as council president and acting mayor. I'm in front of the candidate I'm talking about. I understand that. After 100 years of Republican control, Tenafly, am I saying that right? Tenafly, thank you. Tenafly now has its first totally Democratic council after 100 years, where it has been in Republican control, thanks to the progressive movement that Mr. Zinna is part of. Councilman Zinna says that his experience as the only Democratic candidate with executive and legislative leadership uniquely qualifies him for the governorship at this rare political moment. Thank you, Mr. Zinna, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. And finally, last but not least, Republican Stephen Rogers was a police officer for more than 30 years in East Orange and Nutley, New Jersey. When he retired in 2011, he was a detective lieutenant and commander of the department's Criminal Investigation Division. In 2008, he was elected to the Nutley Board of Education and is currently on the Board of Commissioners. He has served with the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI's National Joint Terrorism Task Force. He is also an author and a Fox News guest commentator. Commissioner Stephen Rogers. Thank you, sir.
All right. So let's get started. So these are the rules that the candidates have agreed on. Tonight's questions have been agreed upon by the candidates. There will be a 5-minute opening statement in alphabetical order. Here's our timer, gentlemen. We have green, yellow, red, with the amount of time specifically left. 5-minute opening statement. 2 minutes to respond to each question. There will be no follow-ups, and rebuttals will be kept to a minimum and used within your 2 minutes. And there will be no closing statements. So let's get started. So first question is to Commissioner Rogers. And we'll start. We'll always go to your left and cycle around. Oh, opening statement. Forgive me. Opening statements. Mr. Rillo.
I would first like to thank everyone very much for coming out here today. I think you should all give yourselves a round of applause for all being here today. Like many of you, I'm sick and tired of being number one at all the wrong things. Number one in property taxes. Number one in the highest cost for roads and bridges. Number one in the most people leaving a state. Number one in the most credit downgrades. Number one in the worst funded pension. Number one in the most restricted liberties. That's why I decided to run for governor. New Jersey needs a change. People are getting so sick and tired of the corruption, the establishment. For example, look at where we're at today. All the politicians basically paid off to be in this election. They're the same old on both the Democratic side and the Republican side. They sell out to the fat cats, the special interests. That's what New Jersey has become, for fat cats and special interests, not for the people of New Jersey. I, again, decided to run because I want to fight the establishment. I want to be one of the people. I own my own business. I've been an entrepreneur pretty much my whole entire life. I left my acting career that was very successful, and I decided that I wanted to fix the state of New Jersey, and that's why I decided to run. People are frustrated. They don't think things could change, but things can change. You have to change the leadership that you have in a state. You can't accept the fact that you have the same people every single year that promise you the same exact things. I want to make sure that New Jersey is not faced with another 4 years of scandals and corruption under the Democrats or the Republicans. This is not a partisan thing. This is a political corruption thing. We have followers in New Jersey. We have 26,000 followers on Facebook, probably close to more combined than all the candidates except for maybe one of them. Additionally, I announced my campaign in September of 2015, proudly saying that I was the first candidate to announce, probably a year before all the other candidates. And what happened today to these fine gentlemen that are all fighting for democracy, both Republican and Democrat, is they got screwed. You, the people, got screwed. Because you know what? This is about New Jersey. This is not about the fat cats and the special interest. People are so sick and tired of the same people being in office, the same deals being cut year after year. This debate is going to be substantive. It's going to have facts. It's going to be about you, how we can change New Jersey. It's going to be about the solutions that we can do for New Jersey. People are tired of politicians coming in office and saying the same thing over and over. Like I said, I'm a business person. I've never been elected to office before. And I understand the frustrations that everyone has, because that's why I decided to run, because I'm sick and tired of being number one at all the wrong things. And I want to fix the state of New Jersey. Thank you.
Commissioner Rogers, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, I spent 38 years of my life on the Nutley, New Jersey Police Department and retired as a Detective Bureau Commander. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've seen parents who have put their heads on my shoulder day in and day out over the result of them or their children being victims of crime. I've seen people take their own lives as a result of the economy that has been very, very poor in this state for many years. At the same time, I served 25 years in the United States Navy Reserves, retired as a lieutenant commander, and worked at the FBI National Joint Terrorism Task Force for 2 years. I know about terrorism. I know that this state's going to need a governor who's going to work very, very hard to prevent the next attack. But what I want to really share with you is what is going on here today. The worth, the value of a candidate should never be based on money. It should be based on their message. All of us have a message. We are not the outcast. The outcasts are in that building. They should have stood up, and they should have said, we care enough about this state that we will invite the rest of the candidates in to discuss with us before the entire state, before the entire population of this state, what our values are and what the issues that we want to bring to the public. That did not happen, and that should have happened. Every single citizen of this state has the right to hear from all of us. We're not there because we are not obligated to any special interest groups. We are not in there because we did not write checks to anybody in this state. We are not there because we truly believe in democracy, and we truly believe that you must include everyone in this state, from every city, from every town, from every neighborhood. So as I said before, we are not the outcasts, they're in there. And I think this is a testimony to the 4 men up here who are willing to come out here and share what's in their heart and on their mind with regard to the future and destiny of this state. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councilman Zinna, please.
Thank you. My name is Mark Zinna, and I am, microphone working? My name is Mark Zinna, and I'm a Democrat running for governor in the June 6th primary. I'm a councilman in Tenafly, council president. I was acting mayor this year for about 5 months, and I got into this race after I saw the results of last year's election. I was very disappointed. What I'm most disappointed at is the leadership of both the Republican and the Democratic Party, the leadership at the state and the national level that are selling out the people of this state and the people of this country. And what do we have going on in Washington right now? We all see the news. We've got Amway Corporation running the Department of Education. We've got ExxonMobil running the State Department. We've got Goldman Sachs oligarchs running the Treasury Department yet again. We've got Breitbart running the White House, and no one is running anything whatsoever at all in Trenton. And it's time we make a change. When I'm on the campaign trail, people ask me, is politics in New Jersey as corrupt as everyone thinks it is? And I say, no, not at all. It is so far worse, you can't even imagine how corrupt it is. And let's talk about the corruption. And these 2 gentlemen talked about how we came to be at this place tonight and what's going on inside and the checks that have been written. But we have a front runner on the Democratic side. Most of us know his name, Mr. Murphy. He has written checks to every single county chair and county organization in this state for the past 2 years, and he is buying the nomination fair and square, and the voters are getting hoodwinked, and their voices are not being heard. And I couldn't stand by and watch and throw my shoes at the television while this madness continues, and that's why I'm in this race, to represent the people of this state. And on the policy side, a couple of issues. Let's talk about health care. Health care is a fundamental human right, and this state in New Jersey should have a single-payer health care system, and no one should be denied health care in this state whatsoever. Women's rights are under attack. I have 3 daughters. I don't ever tell my 3 daughters what to do with their body, and I certainly don't want some corrupt politician in Trenton or Washington telling them what to do with their body also. Now, the environment. We've got people who want to build pipelines in this state. I say no pipelines. When I'm governor, my Attorney General will fight the federal government and any state individual who wants to build these pipelines, and we're not going to let that happen. As a matter of fact, I feel so strongly that if my Attorney General and I lose the lawsuits, well, then I'm going to declare a state of emergency in this state for health reasons. call out the National Guard, and stop anyone who wants to build pipelines in this state and poison our water. We should be focused on renewable energy, wind power, tidal power, solar power, things that are good for our environment and benefit the state economically. Right now, there are 3 times as many renewable energy jobs in this state as there are fossil fuel jobs. And we need to build a new car manufacturing plant in this state, electric car manufacturing, and build charging stations on all our highways and road systems to promote renewable energy. So these and other policies are why I'm in this race. I'm here for the people of the state of New Jersey because that's the only thing that matters to me. Thank you very much.
Okay, and finally, Mr. Bill Brennan.
Good evening, and thank you for being here. My name is Bill Brennan, and my microphone is just about to come up. Okay. I've been running for governor since November, but I've been trying to do my best to make this world a better place for most of my life. I have a track record of 30 years of speaking truth to power, and I've lost a few rounds and I've won a few rounds, but I can tell you what I stand for. The first thing I stand for is answering a question when the question is put to you. I can't tell you how many of these forums I've been to where the other candidates have been asked about how they're going to solve the pension crisis, and they don't give an answer. They say, we will find the money, but they don't say where they're going to find the money from. I have a specific and comprehensive proposal on how to solve the pension crisis. More importantly, when it comes to the environment and social justice, I have a better record than any candidate in the race. I have been fighting for my entire life for open space, open government, and the rule of law to be applied equally to everyone. We are living in a time now where if you are black or Hispanic and you commit a crime, and you will serve that time as a mandatory minimum. But if you are white and rich and powerful, you can close bridges or extort from the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey position you hold, and extort United Airlines and not serve a day in jail. And folks, we are at a dangerous place when there are certain people in our country and in our state that can commit crimes and not have to suffer the consequences. I have brought criminal complaints against the governor of New Jersey recently. 2 judges on 4 occasions found that those charges had merit, and unfortunately, the governor of New Jersey appoints all prosecutors, and one of the people that works for the governor administratively dismissed the charge. Before I go any further, I want to point out that there's been a failure of leadership here in this college, because apparently the AFT is without a contract and they're refusing to negotiate with these fine people despite the work that they do. And I just want to say, what's disgusting? Union busting. And that's what we have from both sides of the aisle right now. A week and a half ago in Bergen County, New Jersey, I had to speak out against the Democratic sheriff of that county for laying off police officers after he promised that if he merged the police department into his department, he wouldn't do so. He flat out lied to them, and he's refusing to negotiate. Thank you. So now, we're going a little further, and we're at a point where we're going to have an existential crisis when it comes to life on this planet. We are at a point where we may not be able to reverse the toxic effects of climate change. We may just be able to mitigate them and save most of us. However, we have a governor in office who pulled us out of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, who pulled the plug on the Atlantic Wind Energy Project, who took the money from the Clean Energy Program and used it to give wealthy people tax cuts. And that is not appropriate. Under my administration, those 3 programs will be fully funded, and we will be the first state in the country to rely entirely on renewable energy for our electric supply. And I am the only candidate in the race with a position on the Citizens Against Pilgrim Pipeline platform that is entirely against bringing more pipelines through New Jersey. And the reason for that is simple. The pipe itself has no value. The value is in the land that the pipe travels over. The pipe and clean water. Change the political climate of there cheering for us. And they're right. Our Pinelands Commission was captured by a corrupt governor who put people in place that had one thing in mind and it had nothing to do with what the public wanted. However, a pipeline is going to leak. It's not a matter of if it's going to leak. It's a matter of how long it lasts before it leaks, how much it leaks before we find it, and how much environmental contamination it will do before we stop it. We don't need to rely on fossil fuels anymore. This is a rich and abundant planet, and we have the means to do it. Unfortunately, the moneyed interests that are controlling our government, the Exxons, the Mobil platform that have donated money to most every political party in this country, are controlling the government. It is time for the people to take back the positions that they hold in government. We, the people, are the citizens of the United States, and we, the people, will be heard one way or the other. Right now, there are 4 people inside in the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party who bought their way into an event. Now, what kind of a democracy are we in where you need $500,000 in order to speak your mind as a citizen? I'm here to say, along with a bipartisan group of candidates for governor, that our voice will be heard and we will not be silenced, and that is where we are today. We have the last chance to take back our government, and I hope you help us. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's get right to the questions. We have a very big variety of questions chosen among the Democrats and candidates, hard negotiation. So the first question, whoever we start with, we're going to go to your left and cycle around. So the first question is for Commissioner Rogers. In 2015, New Jersey's property taxes were the highest in the nation, not among the highest, but the highest. According to NewJersey.com, just 0.2% of U.S. homeowners paid more than $8,000 in property taxes, which is less than the average New Jersey citizen. So, what would you do as governor to lower property taxes for New Jersey residents?
18,000 people a month are leaving the state of New Jersey, 227,000 last year. Just recently, I was in Pennsville, New Jersey, and the people in that community in South Jersey have pretty much told me that that community is going to cease to exist in 5 years. We can no longer afford to live in New Jersey. We all know that. The politicians that have been in office, that amazingly get reelected over and over again, the ones who created the problems, they don't have a solution. But part of my solution is, A, you've got to cut taxes, you've got to repeal the gas tax, you've got to cut the income tax, you've got to cut the sales tax so that people have the power of the purse. More people spend money, the more you get revenue. That's number one. Number two, I have been all over this state, from Cape May to the northern border, from east to west, and I've met business people, men and women alike, who own big companies and small companies, and they told me they're packing it in. Why? They can no longer afford the state regulations and mandates on businesses. They just can't afford to stay here. So we've got to cut those regulations, enable businesses, small and large, and entrepreneurs to come into this state and to start to grow. We're going to hear a lot of these candidates are going to talk about how they're going to solve the property tax problem. The route, the pathway to solve our property tax problems is to bring revenue into the state. We've lost millions and millions of dollars in revenue as a result of failed policies, and that's what I'm going to target. And one more thing, we're going to cut spending. I'm going to go after the park testing at $108 million. That's going to go. Common Core curriculum is going to go. And we're going to go after the Department of Education, which to me is an employment agency. We've got to put an end to wasteful spending. Couple that with everything I said, then we start talking about real property tax relief. Thank you.
Okay, property tax relief. Let's talk about two significant issues. The first one, municipal consolidation. We have too many towns in this state, and I'm going to give you a real clear example. Up in Bergen County has about 1 million people living in it. New York City has 9 million people. Well, equipment than the entire 5 boroughs of the city of New York combined. And by cutting down municipalities, we start cutting waste, we start cutting duplication of effort and departments, and that's one way we start. The second way we start is by changing the way we tax ourselves. Right now, 2/3 of our property taxes go towards schools. Well, let's go back in time a little bit. 500 years ago, in the days of feudalism, and you lived outside the king's castle, and let's say you raised chicken or sheep, and every year the king would come around and collect a few of your sheep or chicken. Well, that was part of your taxes, because where you lived, you grew things and you produced income from it. Our homes no longer do that. We live in our homes, we collect salaries, we own businesses. They don't produce income for us. What we need to do is change our school funding from a property tax-based system to an income tax-based system so that people pay taxes based on what they're able to pay. So a young couple starting off has a chance to buy a home and get started with life without being overburdened in property taxes. And senior citizens, grandma and grandpa, they want to stay in the state. Well, their property taxes, their income taxes, and the part they contribute to schools will be based on their income, their ability to pay, not an arbitrary property tax that will force them and their wealth out of the state. Thank you.
Okay, hello. Check, hello. All right, I'm going to be very specific because that's what I'm known for. The way I'm going to reduce property taxes is as follows. I am going to take the entire school budget from your municipality's hands and put it in the state budget. But in exchange for doing that, your municipality will have to agree to become part of a county school board with one superintendent. Because what we have now is a series of fiefdoms where you have a superintendent for every little school district there is. There are some towns that have 3 different school districts at the same time. So by doing this, if you want to keep your little fiefdom where you pick your superintendent and pay him $200,000 a year to run 3 schools, and you don't want to become part of a county school board, you will pay your own school taxes. But under my program at a county level, again, it is a synergistic approach. It solves more than one problem. Some of our counties have the best school systems in the country. At the same time, they have the board would allow students from the poor districts to avail themselves of the better schools in the wealthy districts. So, for example, I live in Wayne, New Jersey, one of the top 100 school districts in the country. Residents of Paterson, New Jersey, because it is part of Passaic County, would be able to attend school in the school system where they choose. The city of New York is able to do this, where if you don't live near the school you want to go to, you are able to go to a school anywhere within your jurisdiction. Now, under my program, 1/3 of your property tax bill will be reduced entirely because you will no longer have to fund your schools. You just have to be willing to give up that 3 superintendents and 6 assistant superintendents and various duplications of effort that are going on day in and day out by various municipalities that insist on their own form of corruption. At a state level, education for the public schools funded through the county level is the only appropriate way to go. And as I said, it solves 2 problems. It will lift the lowest among us, and it will solve everybody's property tax issues. And that is the first and only specific program that's been announced that solves more than one problem. And I thank you for taking the time to hear me out. Thank you.
Okay, and finally, Mr. Rulo.
In addition to eliminating state superintendents, which we have 577 school districts, in September of 2015, I proposed we eliminate them all, consolidate to 1 superintendent per county. We also need to look at the redundant assistant superintendents, the business administrators. Additionally, in Middletown, New Jersey, there's 8 vice principals for 2 schools. That will be unacceptable. I was speaking to teachers who said, what happened to the good old days when a teacher used to take over for the principal, the senior teacher used to take over for the principal? Well, that's one idea, but it's not going to solve the problem. What I'm proposing is it was $100 million per year in New York City brokerage housing fees for our pension under the Democrats, and it went up to $700 million a year under Christie. What I will do is over 2 years, I will take that $1.4 billion, And by the way, that $1.4 billion is that magic number that Christie coincidentally paid towards the pension payment. And I will make a pension payment because I will take the New York City brokerage firms and fire them, and I will basically put it back into the hands of the investment division in Trenton, which are sitting there twiddling their thumbs. I have just showed you how to stabilize property taxes in New Jersey with a $1.4 billion payment that is not going to be a burden on the taxpayers. Additionally, I would take all the spending and consolidate it in the schools, basically increasing purchasing power like all of the other big corporations would do. Why aren't we running New Jersey like a business? We additionally need to make sure that we consolidate our roads, Turnpike, Parkway, all the Turnpike, Parkway, South Jersey Transportation, so that we don't have 5 supervisors watching one guy dig a hole. Also, we want to consolidate that spending. We need to repeal the gas tax. And as many of you know, I came out a year and a half to, actually November of 2015, and I was against the gas tax, and I led that fight. I was the first in New Jersey to do it. I'm proud. Thank you.
Okay, so this next question is going to start with Councilman Zinna.
You're a lifesaver. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Zinna, and then we'll go to your left. A sanctuary city is one that refuses to cooperate with the federal government's stricter stances on immigration enforcement. Donald Trump has pledged to cancel all federal funding to sanctuary cities in his first 100 days. This was blocked last month by a Democratic judge on the Ninth Circuit Court. What is your position on sanctuary cities in the state of New Jersey?
So, as I mentioned before, I'm Council President in Tenafly, and with regard to sanctuary cities, I'm proud to say last month in Tenafly, we passed a resolution that declared Tenafly a sanctuary city, and the police officers in the excellent police officers in our borough, they're out there enforcing the law, doing their job, but they are not helping anyone from ICE detain or remove any of the members of our community based on their immigration status. So that's my view. I voted in favor of our town being a sanctuary city. I'm also very proud of the fact that 2 weeks ago, our Board of Education decided to make our school system a sanctuary school. So when a 6-year-old comes in for a kindergarten class, they do not get checked for their immigration status. They are a resident of our town. They get educated in our school. It's very clear. The federal government has screwed up our immigration system. One department of the federal government does nothing in terms of immigration issues. Another part of the federal government, the IRS, issues tax identification numbers. 50% of the undocumented immigrants in this state pay federal income taxes and file tax returns and get tax returns back, and 30% in this state, undocumented immigrants own homes. So we need to protect the residents that are living among us, and I'm proud to say our town is a sanctuary town. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. And I agree with Mark that we need not just sanctuary cities. Under my administration, as a matter of public safety and as a matter of equality and justice, we will be a sanctuary state, and this is why. When you take a group of people and you make them, marginalize them so that they cannot avail themselves to the protection of law enforcement, you set up people to be victims in society. You create a class of people who can be preyed upon by those in our society who are actually criminals. And I am concerned that by doing this xenophobic, fear-based rule that's coming from the Trump administration, what we are going to do is set up a system where thieves, rapists, scam artists, and other criminals will target people who come from other countries and get away with committing crimes on them. There are people now that have been raped, and I don't think that you should be subject to rape because you came from another country. I think that if you are raped, you should feel free to go to the police department and report your rapist. Because in my view, a rapist is a more dangerous criminal than somebody who came across the border to feed his family out of desperation or to escape a war that was caused by the global complex that has taken over the world. We are being run by psychopaths and sociopaths who are out to kill people and create war. And as we create war, bombings and terror and horror, we have to open our arms to the people that are fleeing that, and we have to realize that it is our policies that are driving people out of their homeland. It is our war and our lust for oil that is bringing people to our country in droves that have been brought forth by corporate America and the greed and the avarice and the self-centered aggrandizement that is going on in the name of the United States of America. And I prefer decent, honest immigrants over lying, cheating, rapist criminals. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rullo.
This is definitely going to be an interesting debate where it's going to be a little bit of polarization here, but I completely embrace Donald Trump's entire illegal immigration position. Try being a landscaper, which I am. I'm a hard-working landscaper, blue-collar guy out there and hustling. And for years, over a decade, I've competed against illegal immigrants who basically have no licenses, no liability insurance. They're not following the law, and they're not following the law exactly the way they did when they came into this country illegally. Now, as a business owner and somebody who has worked hard my whole entire life, how the hell do I compete against somebody who has a Mexico driver's license with a Toms River, New Jersey address? But if anyone in this crowd ever got pulled over by a police officer, you would get arrested for fraud for having a license that is fraudulent, period. So, again, it's always the same old polarizing words, you know, racist, xenophobic. I'm a business owner, folks. I have been literally chased out of 7 different developments because I'm competing against somebody who basically for $1,000 can do it for $1,000. But you know who's the offenders here? It's the illegal immigrants that are hiring their own people, giving them citizenship and paying them below, and they're destroying it. Anyone who tries to call somebody a xenophobic or a racist because they own a business and they can't compete because they follow the laws, try paying a nut of $3,000 a month just to make sure that you're paying for all the insurances and all the licenses. Well, the illegal immigrants aren't doing that. And you know what? We live in a sanctuary state. And, you know, we beg to differ, but as governor, I sure any mayor having a sanctuary city in this state is not going to be a sanctuary state.
Okay, and finally, Mr. Rogers.
As governor of the state of New Jersey, there will be no sanctuary cities in this state. Ladies and gentlemen, my wife never, a good part of her life, did not live under the stars and stripes. She lived under a red flag with a hammer and a sickle on it. And she came to this country. She came to this country and worked hard and spent a lot of money, and over a 10-year period became a legal resident, a legal citizen of the United States of America. We are either going to be a land of laws or we are going to be lawless. I do not suggest and will never suggest that the police are going to come in and just drag people out of their homes. That's not going to happen. But what we need to do is understand very, very clearly that we must have laws and abide by those laws. The middle class residents of this state, the people who have worked hard for this state and this country, you know, we need to represent them also. Now, when the President of the United States withdraws the funding from these cities and these counties that become sanctuary, I will make sure that the taxpayers of New Jersey are not going to fill that void. And I'm going to take it a step further. Politicians are not above the law. Anybody in this state who's elected, any politician who breaks the law with regard to sanctuary cities, I will direct my Attorney General to begin prosecuting them for obstructing justice and for harboring criminals. We are either going to be a land of law or it's going to be a lawless land. We need to put the residents of this state first, and then we can move forward from there. Thank you.
Okay, next question. This is we'll start with Mr. Rulo this time. In your view, what are the most critical problems within New Jersey's transportation system? And what will you do as governor to fix them?
As I was saying before, I chose to step up. Step up before Silent Kim, we call her, Hell No Guindano, the rest of the legislature, both sides. In November of 2015, I called it out. I said that gas tax is going to come out because the gas prices are going down, and once it hits $2, they're going to raise the gas tax. And I said that once they raise that gas tax, it's not going to go under $2 again, and it's happening now. We had a transportation trust fund, $950 million, $1 billion. I will dissolve. I will make it more transparent and more efficient. I will consolidate the South Jersey transportation. I will make it so 5 guys aren't sitting there watching somebody with a pen and a paper and they're watching a guy dig a hole. People need to work on our streets, not supervise people digging the holes. In addition, I would consolidate all of the spending with all of these entities. Once that occurs, and very important, intended to be. It was intended that we phase out after road construction, and they never did it. But most importantly, how are we going to come up with this revenue? What I will do is I will legalize recreational marijuana, and I will earmark a portion of the funds specifically and only, and that's important, only to the Transportation Trust Fund and 1 or 2 others which we're going to discuss. And guess what, folks? We have a huge amount of revenue coming in. And you can't sit here and say you're going to repeal the gas tax, you're going to get rid of things, and at the same time, and again, the person isn't here that I'm talking about. We have one person that wants to build a bridge from Delaware all the way to Cape May with windmills on it. Yet he's for the repeal of the gas tax. How the hell are you going to do that? So folks, I am giving you a revenue source, and I'm telling you that I will not allow them to do what they did to the pension and what they did to the pension and everything else in this state, including the Transportation Trust Fund. I will never give those scoundrels, and look at Murphy. Let Murphy know that centralized banks failed during communism, and it's going to fail in New Jersey because these politicians are dirty scoundrels and can't be trusted with a bank. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Rogers, please.
In the United States military, there were 2 words ingrained in us every day. Those words are missing from the vocabulary of the government of the state of New Jersey. Those words are accountability and responsibility. It seems to me when things go wrong in this state, everyone is pointing fingers at everyone else, and no one is being held accountable. As governor of this state, I'm going to make sure that upper management, middle management, supervisors especially on the line are going to be held accountable and responsible for all the problems that we have been facing here in our transit system. It is not the fault of the hard workers. It is the fault of management. And they need to have their feet put to the fire or they're going to lose their jobs. That's number 1. Number 2, there's a biblical proverb that says, without vision, the people perish. The state of New Jersey is perishing because we have no vision. So I'm looking 21, 22, 25 years down the road. Right now, we should be investing in the creation of monorails, in the creation of a strong, viable, effective ferry service up and down the Hudson and some of the rivers that we have in New Jersey. We should be thinking about, as one of the Democrats said earlier, about electric cars, electric systems. We should be now investing in these projects so that our children and our grandchildren will benefit from them. But we have no vision, ladies and gentlemen. All we have here is politicians signing checks, buying votes, making promises that they will never be able to keep. And believe me, folks, they will never be able to keep those promises, and their failure will fall on the backs of our children and our grandchildren. Thank you.
Mr. Zinna, please.
One comment I would like to make regarding sanctuary cities, and one of the gentlemen made a comment about the law of the land needs to be enforced. You know, the law of the land isn't always necessarily the right thing to do. The law of the land was slavery was the law of the land at one point. Women weren't allowed to vote at one point. That was illegal. And fast forward, very recently in our lifetime, if a woman made a choice and had an abortion, she could have gone to jail and the doctor along with her. So the law of the land, because in my view, as I read in my history books, a statement once by a writer that said that which is not just is not law. And that's how we have to look at the undocumented immigrant issue in this country. We need to look for a way to solve our problems, not to pretend they don't exist. Now, as far as transportation goes, the first thing I would do is disband one of the most corrupt institutions in this state and probably the country, which is the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, and return it to its roots of taking care of the crossings of the Hudson River and the port. Number two, I would build a transportation tunnel that was canceled by the current governor in short-sightedness and as we possibly can to protect the multi-trillion-dollar economy going on between New York and New Jersey. I would extend the number 7 subway line from New York City into New Jersey, recognizing that transportation is about the next 50 to 100 years. I would take a subway line, the A train, and build it over the George Washington Bridge as it was originally intended when the bridge was built right into Patterson to open up that whole northern corridor to economic opportunity, because transportation, again, is about the future, and we need to invest in the future and make sure it is there for our children and our grandchildren. Thank you.
Transportation. As far as transportation is concerned, we have a problem in New Jersey, not because we don't have the appropriate level of we don't have the appropriate level of staff. It is the management of the railroads, and it is the underfunding of the railroads. And in order it's a program that involves New Jersey Transit and our bridges and our tunnels and our roads. We need competent people at the helm. And we don't have that now because of the patronage and payoff. But when it comes to dollars of spending, they're planning on it right now. And I'm going to about on 11th and the other underneath Madison Square Garden. That those are with no subway to go to Penn Station just to go to Madison Square Garden. On which Madison Square Garden administration is up in front a new Penn Station, a new Penn South, and a bus terminal that connects directly to the train station below. Construction, because we're on one footprint. We make it easier for the commuter. Riders who say it's okay to add an hour to your day will not be the mindset of my administration. The people who get off the bus will be able to transfer to New Jersey Transit, to Long Island Railroad, the New York City subway, and to the Amtrak trains. They have the A, the C, and the E on 8th Avenue. They'll have the 1, the 2, and the 3 on 7th Avenue. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask the police officer and the landscaper, victims of crime who are undocumented. If they show up, I was just raped by an American citizen, are we going to tell them, turn around, put your hands behind your back, you're going back where you came from, and we're not going to arrest your perpetrator? Sanctuary state is something that must happen. We need a path to citizenship for the people of this country that are living here and working of our economy. We don't need to create a class of victims. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to stay with Mr. Brennan, and we're going to go to the environment. So, Mr. Brennan, although there is currently no fracking in the state of New Jersey, there are numerous fossil fuel pipelines being proposed and built throughout the state. So what are your views on these pipelines and on climate change in general? And what will you do as governor to limit New Jersey's impact on the environment? And will
As I said, I was the first candidate in the race to say that as part of his governorship, within the next 8 years, New Jersey will be the first state in the country to rely entirely on renewable energy for its electric supply. And how we're going to get there is by resurrecting the Atlantic Wind Energy Project, by getting us back into the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, by taking the money that's in the Clean Energy Program and using it for clean energy instead of tax cuts. Now, we're going to need a public-private partnership. So I propose as a source of revenue a tax of $150,000 a year, 2 cents on the dollar for everything you owe over that. A tax on corporations that have CEOs that make 100 times more than their lowest paid employee. Legalization of marijuana, which will bring in $300 million a year in sales tax and provide jobs for people, because I'm going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now, as far as pipelines are concerned, there will be. They are unnecessary in any way. Form ourselves to a renewable energy economy, and the pipelines, we get all of the risk and we get none of the reward. All of the pipelines that are being proposed are for out-of-state companies to make a profit. All of the value in a pipeline is in the land over which it travels and not the pipe itself. We take all the risk, they get all the reward, and we are stuck with an environment that needs decontaminating over and over and over again. Under my administration, if you pollute the environment, it will be so exorbitantly expensive that anybody watching what happens to your company will know that there is no cost of doing business worthwhile if you're going to pollute. Any drop of pollution that you drop in the state of New Jersey is not going to be cleaned up by my insurance company. It's going to come out of your corporate treasury. There will never be a day in your life that you can obviously get away with polluting the environment and making a profit on our resources. Remember, this land is our land. This land was made for you and me, and this land is not to be raped, robbed, and pillaged by corporate America, which is what's been happening for the past 30 years.
Okay, and I just want to reiterate, Mr. Rillo, it's your turn, and I just want to please address the pipelines and fracking.
So, before it was brought up that Governor Christie cut the renewable energy and that there's some corruption going on, but what a lot of people don't realize is that John Corzine, our ex-governor, took $765 million, again, $765 million of all of your money out of the Societal Benefits Fund and basically put solar panels on poles, and half of them are facing north. And by the way, they need to face south. Additionally, they need to be cleaned in order to work, and they're never cleaned. So basically, Corzine was in bed with PSE&G and funneled them $765 million. So what I'm getting at is the whole entire thing is partisan. You need to look at energy from what energy is practical, for what purpose, where, and when. Not because it's a Democratic donor or because it's a Republican donor. I embrace the pipeline in the state of New Jersey. The future of New Jersey is natural gas. The carbon footprint can't be argued. It's a low carbon print. It's not a fossil fuel compared like an oil or a coal. New Jersey natural gas, it's either we get on the boat now or we miss it. Now, I'm from the Pinelands, and I talk to a lot of residents that it's going to be in their backyard, and they don't have any problem with it. And I speak to a lot of people about it. The future of this state is going to be natural gas when I'm governor. We can use natural gas to supply the end users, including commercial, manufacturing. But the best part is that we could fuel actual places that are using oil right now, and we could use natural gas instead. There's even technology like solar panels where it's fed, the gas is fed into a box, and the box basically transmits it into an AC signal, which is how it powers a house, a business, or a manufacturing facility. To me, wind is not practical in most portions of New Jersey. I want to leave one last thought. Who the hell taxes people with cancer and veterans for marijuana medicinal when they don't tax solar panels? That's the way this state works, and it's unfair. And as governor, I will look at energy in a practical, professional standpoint. I'm an energy expert. I understand energy. I have certificates from all over the country, and that's how I will look at this. Thank you.
I'm going to take this down a different road, folks. It's a road that a lot of people may not want to speak about or hear about. But first of all, with regard to the environment that we know of, I was down in the Pinelands. I saw what's going on there. I believe that any impact on any community, it should be decided upon the will of the people and not the politicians. The people know the character of their neighborhoods and their communities, and if they don't want a pipeline going down, destroying their preserves and natural resources, it shouldn't happen. But there is another environment that not too many people want to talk about. For the record, that is the environment of the unborn. That is the environment of an unborn child who is on a 9-month journey into this world. As governor, I'm going to do everything I can to protect those unborn children. They have a right under the Constitution of the United States to live a life with liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Many people are opposed to that, and I respect everyone's opinion. But I will be the voice of the voiceless, and I will do what I can to protect them and make sure that their environment, until they get into this world, is safe and secure. Thank you.
Councilman Zinna.
So pipelines, in my opening statement, I talked about pipelines. No more pipelines in this state under any circumstances. The ones that are planned now aren't even here to serve the people of this state. They're just to export the oil in its crudest, filthiest form, and going over the water supply for half the residents of this state. It doesn't make any sense that we do that. How ridiculous is our state government right now and our governor with Exxon that was fined $9 billion for the mess that they made in our state with their environmental pollution. And what did our governor do? Because Exxon gave the Governors Association, when he ran it, $400,000 in contributions, he decided to cancel the $9 billion fine. And now Exxon is off the hook for about $200 million. And it's bad for the environment in this state, and it's bad for our pocketbooks in this state. So we need to be doing business a different way. No more pipelines. We have to be free of fossil fuels in this state by 2015. We have to look at solar, and we have to look at wind, and we have to look at power from our oceans. That is the only thing that will give us a safe and clean future. And as governor, that's the view I'm going to take, and that's how I will help run this state and make it a clean place for us to live.
Thank you. Okay, now we're on to Commissioner Rogers, please. You did environment. You started. Commissioner Rogers, what are your views on gun control? And particularly, do you support the right to conceal carry in New Jersey?
I wholeheartedly support that every single citizen in this state should have the right to carry a concealed weapon. The Second Amendment is not negotiable. 38 years of my life, I was a police officer, and I can tell you this. It's a pretty good feeling to know that if you're in trouble on a highway, whether it be the turnpike as a trooper or in a community somewhere, that a law-abiding trained citizen with a concealed weapon will be there to help you. I also know about terrorism. I talked to you about that earlier. It takes 2 to 3 minutes for the greatest police departments in the world right here in New Jersey to get to the scene of an attack. In those 2 or 3 minutes, a lot of people can die as a result of a terrorist. Have a law-abiding citizen who knows how to use a weapon, they will save a lot of life. People will give you the notion that this will become the Wild West. Well, I was in the West. I was at the Republican National Convention in Ohio, where they have concealed carry weapon laws. In fact, it's open carry. Responsible citizens were not out there like the Wild West. They were out there looking at each other and will be ready to protect each other if necessary. So, yeah, I'm in favor of concealed carry weapons in this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Zinna.
Just to be clear, I believe in the purposes of the Second Amendment. In my household, we have shotguns and rifles that are all licensed and we have permits for because we enjoy doing target practice. I do that with my daughters and we have fun with it. But I don't see any need for me, my family, my friends, or people in my community to be carrying concealed handguns. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It can only lead to violence and problems, and that's not the society we want to build. We want to build a society that's focused on peace and being able to solve some of our problems without resorting to putting our hands in our jackets and pulling out a .45 and shooting someone. So there's my answer. I do not support concealed carry in the state of New Jersey.
Mr. Brennan.
Well, if we didn't have a constitution in this country and we didn't have a proliferation of handguns right now, I just want to point out that there's some people over there that are here for the Murphy debate and they're having a good time and it's bad enough we weren't invited in there, but now they're going to interrupt us out here. It's just part and parcel of the machine, I guess. It'd be nice if they paid a little bit of attention to what's going on here instead of disrupting our debate. For $430,000, you can participate in our debate. So as I was saying, if there were no Constitution in the United States and there was nobody else with a gun, I would be against concealed carry in the United States, in this state. But you know something? We have a Constitution, and the Second Amendment does protect the right. Would you like to come over here and speak, sir? Do you have something to say with the Murphy campaign? Sir, would you like to come here and take over the debate here? If Mr. Murphy, if you're the supporter for Mr. Murphy? Hold on a minute. Let me get some of your argument. How do you guys feel about us not being allowed in the debate? How do you feel about that? Do you think we should have been allowed in the debate? Yeah. So you don't think we should be allowed in the debate, and we shouldn't be allowed to have our own debate either. It's all about. My problem is, it is our problem, and I want the people to see this is what is going on. You have the right to speak, and I'm glad you're doing it. Yes, and what's happening is. So ladies and gentlemen, how much were you paid to be here?
I have a lot of respect for your short time.
Okay, for those of you who are home and don't know what's going on here, we're having a debate because we don't have $500,000. And because we don't have $500,000, we weren't invited in that building, which is a public building, which was paid for with our tax dollars. And the moderators to that debate are being paid for with our tax dollars. So it's bad enough that we had to run our own debate at our own expense, but now we're being heckled and harassed by people that are in Murphy's corner. And that's not appropriate. If they want a fair debate, they should have let us inside, because I don't think they'll be doing this to Mr. Murphy when he's on the stage inside. So it just goes to show they don't want to have a fair and open process in any way. I don't know what you're afraid of, but I'm answering a question right now. And the question is about gun control.
All right, so why don't we try and start over?
So I believe that the state's gun laws are too restrictive when it comes to concealed carry right now. If you have a restraining order against somebody, it's a piece of paper. And there are people in this state that are being killed and stabbed to death because they have a piece of paper that is supposed to protect them. Do I think everybody should have a gun? No. Do I think if your life is in danger, you should be able to go to a judge or a magistrate and say, I am being stalked, I am being harassed, I am living in fear, and I need to protect myself. There is a larger person with weapons and psychiatric problems, and I don't have the money to hire an armed guard like the rich people inside. I don't have that money, but I can get some protection from the person who is harassing me, stalking me, and trying to kill me. And that is something that needs to change. As far as making it the Wild West, I don't believe that everybody should have a concealed permit, but I do believe if your life is in danger, you should have the opportunity to protect yourself. Thank you.
All right. Yes, go ahead.
In 2013, when we had the Sandy Hook shootings, the Democrats rallied to not look at it objectively and try to figure out how to stop these shootings. They tried to do is railroad through legislation to again restrict our constitutional rights and our Second Amendment. I decided to be one of the only Republicans, in fact, the only one running for governor, who went to that rally and spoke as one of the keynote speakers. And what I said was what they're saying now, almost 4 years later. We need to protect people against terrorists, shooters, gangs, psychopaths. We need to protect women from being raped. And the way you do that is you will enable and allow something that's been restricted, and that's our Second Amendment rights, carry to conceal. You go to Florida, you go to Arizona, and what happens? Just because you're not carrying, nobody else knows if you are or not. Rape is lower, murder's lower, but yet the Democrats empower the murderers, the shooters, and the gangs because they're the only people that actually carry the guns. The law-abiding people of New Jersey are not allowed to carry guns. I embrace Donald Trump and his carry and conceal initiative throughout the whole entire United States. And as governor, I will enforce the Constitution of the United States, and I will restore our Second Amendment rights as it should be. The Democrats have no solution to rape, to murder, and to shooters. It's all in these areas where the legislatures are, the Camdens, the Newarks, the Hudson County, where Booker just left and became senator in one of the most highest murder rate cities in the nation. That was his graduation present. He's got to go. Thank you.
Okay, this next question is for Councilman Zinna. According to CBS News, in June of 2016, New Jersey was one of only 15 states where the income of the top 1% has increased and the bottom 99% has decreased between 2009 and 2013. How would you address the problem of income inequality in New Jersey, and what are your views on increasing the minimum wage?
So income equality is really what our state legislature and our last round of governors want, and that's why we have it. We absolutely need a $15 an hour minimum wage in this state, because wages below that basically mean you can't feed your family, you can't find an apartment, and you certainly can't find a home to buy at that sort of wage rate. So I fully support the $15 an hour minimum wage. I also support legalization of marijuana for both recreation and, of course, medicinal purposes. Could bring hundreds of millions of dollars into our state treasury. And another thing about marijuana and the war on drugs, the war on drugs isn't a war on drugs, it's a war on poverty. And it's a war on people of color, which is why we wind up with cities and places in our state that have had violence and unemployment because we're focused on the wrong things. We need to be focused on employment, new technology jobs. As I said before, a new electric car manufacturing plant in this state located in one of our cities to employ our citizens and residents rather than making wars on our cities. So yes, I support a livable $15 an hour minimum wage.
Okay, before I say anything about income inequality, which is important to me, I just want to point out that if Florida had New Jersey's gun laws, Trayvon Martin would not be dead today. And I don't think handing guns out to anybody indiscriminately without psychiatric evaluations if they have problems or who have a history of criminal misconduct or any other issue like that is an appropriate way to go. And it just needs to be said. But we are living in a time where all of the new wealth, in the past 30 years, the gross domestic product and productivity in this country and wealth has increased significantly, but only for the top 1%. So I have a platform, a plank on my platform that would require any company that pays its CEO more than 100 times what the lowest paid employee of that company makes, a 20% surcharge on that income or on that company's gross receipts. And if they don't do that, they can lower the CEO's pay or they can raise the pay of the lowest paid employee. I'm also going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour next year, directly to $15 an hour, because a rising tide lifts all boats. It does a number of things. It takes people who are working full-time now and receiving public assistance off of public assistance. And if you give a worker $1, the worker spends that dollar and stimulates the economy. If you give a billionaire $1, he puts it under his mattress or sends it to the Cayman Islands in order to avoid paying taxes on it. The idea that we are going to trickle down our way into recovery is a fallacy. It has never worked and it won't work. I'm telling you now that income inequality is a serious problem and we are at a tipping point. We are losing the middle class. And the way to do that is to support unions and strong labor union protection for everybody. The right to work is not actually a right to work. It is a right to work for less. And anybody who talks to you about the right to work is looking about the right to exploit people. So as governor of this state, unions will have protection, contracts will be honored, bonds will not be broken, and the minimum wage will increase to $15 an hour. Thank you.
Mr. Rullo.
Again, as one of the only candidates running for governor who's an actual business owner that every day has to go out there just like everyone else who works and hustle as a business owner. Now let's bring out the reality. I have a business plan that I'm able to pay $15 an hour to my employees, and I'm proud of that. However, there are a lot of industries that right now, if you change that minimum wage, all they're going to do is go automated, and a lot of people are going to lose jobs. In this state, the way you make the economy vibrant is you're going to do what I would do: veto taxes, bring incentives for companies to come into New Jersey so that we flourish, so that their profits increase, so that people are able to have a living wage because of the benefits of corporations and even small businesses that are thriving. Right now, that's not happening in New Jersey. What are we going to, for example, I'm a business owner, and if I was at minimum wage and I increase to $15 an hour, what also happens is it almost doubles the employee comp, the payroll taxes and everything else. And as a business owner, and everyone should listen to this, it is impossible to raise that quick. It will destroy the economy. It will create automation beyond anything you have ever seen. Now, as a proud Republican, I believe the single mothers in this state are the most overlooked people that I have ever seen. I believe that there is income equality, and it's with women. I believe a woman should be paid for equal work to a man, and that's the way it should be. All you have to do is talk to single mothers that are hustling in this state, that their husband, they're in a divorce, or they were left, whatever happens. But they're the unsung heroes in this state. And people will say that it doesn't exist. Well, it does. My heart is there. They decided to have a child. They didn't get an abortion. And they have this child, and they have to make ends meet. And there are employers out there that are basically prowling on these women and giving them below wages of that of which men are getting. And I believe as a Republican, and I'm proud as a Republican to say, that a woman should be paid what a man is for equal work. Thank you.
A $15 minimum wage sounds great until you're the one getting the pink slip. It's happened in California. It's happened in states around this country. I want to see people employed. I don't want to see them unemployed. But let's talk about the other matter that was brought up. You know, heroin and opiates know no color. They know no ethnicity. Heroin and opiates kill everyone. And I have an idea on how I want to solve that problem. Commercials are not going to solve the problem of heroin addiction. And it's not going to stop the killing across this state. Number one, anyone addicted to heroin or opiates, it should be treated as a medical problem, a mental health problem. No young person especially should be put into the criminal justice system as a result of a disease. But I've got a message for those who sell, manufacture, and deal drugs in this state. They better get out, and they better get out before I get into office, because we're coming after them. The dealers, those who are making the hundreds of thousands of dollars that are being funneled to terrorist organizations around the world, they better leave the state of New Jersey, because I'm going to seek legislation that puts these killers behind bars for life. They will never see the light of day. For 40 years, I've been in law enforcement, and year in and year out, the same people with the same solutions that don't work. And we're looking at it again. When I'm governor, that solution is going to work. Thank you.
Did we start with you? Okay. All right. So the next question is on pensions. This is going to be starting with Mr. Rulo. The New Jersey State Pension Fund has only about 1/3 of what it needs to pay current and future retirees. In 2016, Standard & Poor's called this ratio among the worst in the country and warned that it continues to shrink. New Jersey owes about $144 billion in unpaid benefits, which is more than 4 times the state's budget. What is your plan to address the New Jersey's pensions crisis?
Because of Goldman Sachs, this state is in shambles. It's bonded in debt. Legislatures prior, Corzine, and all the Democrats before that, they decided not to make a pension payment. And what did they do? They didn't make a pension payment. They borrowed. They bonded. So we went from $800 million worth of debt in 1993 with the pension, and we're over 100 now. And something needs to be done quickly. We need real leaders. We need business decision makers, people that are going to face the hard facts. And I am the only candidate that is proposed. We need to go to New York City brokerage firms that are getting $700 million per year for brokerage fees, up from $100 million under the Democrats, $700 under Christie. That's $1.4 billion per every 2 years. Christie made one of the largest pension payments. How much of a coincidence that it was $1.4 billion? I want to take that $1.4 billion and make a payment into the pension fund. I will be able to immediately stabilize property taxes. And I've also found a way to make a pension payment. Additionally, like the Transportation Trust Fund, I will not allow these scoundrel legislators on both sides, mostly the Democrats, to ever bankrupt this state again like they've done with the Transportation Trust Fund and with the pension. With marijuana legalization, I will earmark and I will provide a portion, like with the Transportation Trust Fund, to pay for the pension payment. And I will reverse the credit downgrades. I will make it so we're not number one in the most underfunded pension. I will lower property taxes. And I will make New Jersey number one in all the right things and not number one in all the wrong things. Thank you.
Here's where I part ways with the rest of the Republican Party. Public employees in this state, especially police, fire, teachers, were given a promise. And that promise is when they took that job that they were going to get a cost of living allowance in their retirement days and their pension would be sustained. When I'm elected governor, I'm going to restore that cost of living allowance. And what we are going to do is also fill the pension hole through the revenue that will be brought into this state from the businesses that are going to be coming in, and from the lowering of taxes and cutting regulations. Politicians have a habit of making promises that they cannot keep. I can tell you, I'm looking at these signs, Phil Murphy, he made a lot of promises that he will not be able to keep. And I've shared with public employees and police officers and others that you're going down the same road that you went down years ago. You're supporting politicians that cannot keep their promises. Moving forward, I know that we can no longer sustain a lot of the economic strife that has been brought about as a result of health care benefits and the pensions. So we tell people who are joining the workforce from this day forward, this is what you are to expect upon retirement. And what will they expect? They're paying for their own health care now. We're going to break down those walls, and I want to do what the president's doing. Let's not just buy into one health care system. Have the ability, give people the ability to buy health care anywhere in this country. That's how you lower costs. But we must keep our promises. Thank you.
So there's two main issues about the pension system, and the first issue is what we all like to talk about, the folks that are running for office, in terms of all the wonderful things we can do. And we certainly need to keep the promises to the people that are already retired and collecting their pensions. We need to make our quarterly payments to the pension fund. We need to stop paying hundreds of millions of dollars a year to Goldman Sachs and their Wall Street buddies for bad advice that's hurting our pension system. We need to make up the yearly shortfall. We need to do all those things that we'd like to do. But the truth about the pension system, and nobody wants to hear it, is that it's like we're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. We don't even know whether the pension is $50 billion underfunded or $180 billion underfunded, and we've got 2 minutes to give you an answer on how we're going to solve that problem. So the reality is, before we allow Trump and his Goldman Sachs buddies to take over this pension system and bring the money to Washington, we need to face some hard truths over the next few years. We need to protect the retirees who are already collecting checks, but we have to recognize we have to negotiate with all the stakeholders, the teachers, the employees, the unions, and decide what's the best way to protect the pension and design a system so that long term it is sustainable. Thank you.
All right. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? 3 candidates talked about what we need to do, and not one of them told us how to do it. The money isn't there unless you use my specific and concrete proposal, and I'm going to tell you where the money comes from. I will raise an additional $1.7 billion every year without raising taxes by pulling the public employees who are in their pension system now out of Social Security, taking the 6.2% of their check, which is $1.7 billion that the state contributes to the pension, to the Social Security Trust Fund, and directing it to the pension system. Their 6.2% will go into a $457 deferred compensation retirement account, which, if it grows at the actuarial projected rate that the pension system will grow, at the end of 40 years, the public employee would have their own amount of money of $838,000 at age 65 with 40 years of service. So what I have just done is solve the pension crisis and given the public employees a pension system that doesn't require them to work longer years of service, that doesn't require them to give up their cost of living allowances, that doesn't require them to increase the rate of contribution, and doesn't require them to take a lower benefit. It also replaces Social Security, which is a bad deal for anyone who makes less than $40,000 a year, with a deferred compensation account, which is a good deal for people who make more than $40,000 a year, and gives them $838,000. That $838,000 that they would have will generate $5,000 a month in passive income. That is far greater than the $1,600 a month that they would get, stipend that they would get from Social Security. On top of that, should the person who retires at age 65 die at age 70, they will have more than $1 million to pass on to their heirs as an inheritance. This is not going to happen if you're collecting Social Security. When you die, your benefit dies with you. Under my plan, you keep the principal, you live off the interest that it's going to earn, and you get more all throughout your career and in retirement than you would have got under the current system. I am the only candidate who came here tonight and that even inside is telling you where the money's going to come from. And anybody who doesn't tell you where he's going to get the money or she's going to get the money to fund the pension system is telling you they're going to fail. Because if you don't raise the money, you're going to fail. Without correcting the pension system, 30% of all of our revenue will have to go towards debt service. And that will take this state into a financial death spiral. And I have the only plan. It's on the table over there if you'd like to see it. Thank you.
Okay, and now we are going to move on to health care. So, and we're going to go back to Mr. Brennan this time. So, last week, the United States House of Representatives voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. It is not law yet. However, it has brought the topic of health care back to the top of the conversation. So, as governor, what will you do to improve the state of health care coverage in the state of New Jersey, especially for those who are potentially going to lose that coverage?
Okay, the question, in case you didn't hear it, was what are we going to do to as a countermeasure to the Republicans' tax cut that they're disguising as health insurance? And I have a comprehensive policy platform on that I've been talking about since November, and it's so good that Ray Lesniak adopted it and called it brilliant the other night. And here it is. If you get a $30,000 tax cut because you make $5 million a year and you get a $30,000 tax credit and they call it health insurance, that money is going to be taxed immediately by the state of New Jersey, because when New Jersey levies a tax, it gets 100 cents on the dollar when the money goes to Trenton. But when you send $1 to D.C., you get less than 50 cents back. So your $30,000 tax cut is going to be met by a $30,000 tax increase at the state level. And those funds are going to be used to protect those of us at the bottom who don't have millions of dollars to live on. The weakest and the most unfortunate among us are being targeted by the wealthy. And that is something that's not going to be tolerated under my administration. Now, as far as Medicare for all, I want that. And I would love to stand here and promise you that as governor, I can give to every resident of New Jersey Medicare for all. I don't want to lie to you. I won't do that. I can solve the pension crisis. I can get our transportation infrastructure solved. I can provide from the weakest among us and protect us from the Trump administration. I can fully fund Planned Parenthood. But without the federal government cooperating, I cannot find a way to give us Medicare for all. And I don't think anybody who's promising you free college tuition, Medicare for all, rebuilding the roads and bridges, and fixing the pension system, and he's going to do it all on a millionaire's tax, the inheritance tax, and the marijuana revenue. I don't think that person is writing a check that's going to do anything other than bounce. I'm going to need all of that revenue just to do the things that I'm talking about, and I need to raise the 1.7 on the pension system. So as a countermeasure to Trump, if you get a tax credit in the form of health insurance, you're going to get a tax increase in the form of a tax rate from the state of New Jersey. And that is the only thing that we can do right now, is act in a defensive posture from the attack on working people and poor that is emanating from Washington, D.C.
Well, first, let's talk about the fact we're running for governor, and this is a state campaign. And right now, it hasn't passed through the Congress, and it hasn't passed through the Senate. And as a governor candidate, hopefully going to be the next governor, we don't know what we're looking at right now. I do know that there was an amendment put in that would protect senior citizens, that would protect a lot of the different areas of concern, including I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself, people here, you're very concerned about this issue. And as a governor, we're going to be faced upon possible cuts in Medicaid. We're going to be faced upon possible cuts in different premiums with seniors. So the biggest part is I believe that we should expand the amount of insurance companies that we have. And from the very beginning, I've been saying that I embrace what Donald Trump has been saying from the very beginning. And many of the Republicans are saying the same thing. It's always some kind of a plan that comes up and everybody pushes it through. But, again, we don't know what we're looking at this point. A lot of people think this is passed. They don't understand. It's basically through committee. Has to go through Congress. Has to go through the Senate. So to get up here on a soapbox and try to tell people what I'm going to do for something that hasn't passed yet, I can tell you as governor, I will look at it from a business perspective, and also from a human perspective, and make sure that people understand what's happening. Thank you.
I agree with my colleague, Mr. Rullo. We don't have the facts yet. We don't have all the information yet. But what I do know is that when Obamacare was passed, dozens and dozens and dozens of people out of the millions in this country came into my office because they lost their health care. No one wants to see that happen again. I want to make sure that as governor of this state that any health care bill will include pre-existing conditions. But we have not yet seen a final version, and we probably won't for a while. So no one can come up with a solution and say they're going to do A, B, and C. Those of you who are my age, I've been around a while, if you remember the old Dragnet story with Jack Webb, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. We have a problem in this country where people are not willing to wait and get facts before they make decisions. So let's hold on. Let's see what comes out of the Senate. And if we have to oppose it, we will. But at this point, without the facts, no one can make any promise. But I will say this. We should expand the ability of people to buy their health care anywhere in this country. And then you'll see the insurance prices snowdive. Thank you very much.
Healthcare is a fundamental human right. I believe in a single-payer system for the state of New Jersey. We're already spending more money than we need to in order to have it. No one in their right mind would ever invent a health insurance ridiculous system that we have now, funded from multiple different sources, if we had to start from scratch. And I think the system has become so complicated and healthcare has become so rationed for money that it just needs to be pushed off of a cliff. Right now, New Jersey is spending combined about 18% of its GDP based on premiums, whatever the money that comes from the federal government. 18% of the GDP goes to health care in this state. If we have a single-payer system, we would spend somewhere between 10 and 12%. We brought a health care policy expert over from Denmark. Denmark has had a single-payer system for 100 years, since World War I. And their population's a little bit smaller than New Jersey, but we have the resources here to do it. We would still have private doctors, we would still have private hospitals, and we would pay for it the same way we tax ourselves through Social Security. We would have New Jersey employees would become more competitive, and we would have more opportunities for entrepreneurs who want to leave their job, and they don't have to be afraid of losing health care, because everyone in this state will have health care for everyone. Thank you.
Excuse me. Okay. Next question is for Commissioner Rogers. What is your position on decriminalization and or legalization of marijuana? And please fit that into a larger picture of criminal justice reform.
To begin with, I am opposed to the legalization of marijuana for recreational purposes, but I believe that it should be expanded in all areas of medical use, especially mental health. I think that a person should never be denied anything, any solution to any of the medical problems they have. Now, let's talk about criminal justice reform. We need to make sure that the justice system is reformed to do the best that it could to help our police officers, our corrections officers, and our state troopers do their job. Whoever came up with this idea of bail reform, they should be locked up and there should be no bail. I've spoken to police officers and corrections officers and troopers across this state. Bail reform has cost thousands upon thousands of dollars with regard to expenses to each municipality across the state. There have been some incidents where individuals were apprehended by police officers with weapons, and they were released within hours only to commit another crime. Bail reform does not work. And I don't care what anyone says to you about, well, it's discriminatory, et cetera, et cetera. The only thing bail reform does is let criminals loose. Police officers do a very, very dangerous job. They shouldn't have to see the people who they just arrested back out on the street and who may pull a trigger to take their life. Thank you.
I fully believe that marijuana should be legalized for recreational purposes. Now, in terms of criminal justice reform. No one should be in prison for using any sort of drugs or being addicted to drugs. It should be treated as a medical condition. We have 1.5 million black men in this country are missing from our population through our corrupt criminal justice system as it is right now, putting people in jail who should not be there. Now, when we talked about the opioid crisis earlier, heroin, we talk about what the real source of that is. It's the Percocets and the Oxycontins that are in our medicine cabinets that are getting our kids addicted to drugs. And when Oxycontins came out, we really need to point the finger at Purdue Pharmaceuticals and the Sackler brothers for getting that through the FDA, lying about the results, getting fined $600 million, but they still sell $30 to $40 billion worth of drugs to us and our children. That should not be allowed. They should not be allowed to advertise it on television or in the media, the newspapers, or anywhere else. We have to recognize that we have a culture of drugs in this country, and we need to stop it, and we certainly can start by decriminalizing and making marijuana fully legal. Thank you.
Marijuana legalization is long overdue. As I said when I opened opening remarks, I am the first candidate in this election to put it as a point heading on his website. Now, the reasons marijuana are illegal are based on a lie. William Randolph Hearst had the wood, paper, pulp industry in a monopoly, and he didn't want to compete with hemp as a paper source, so he made a movie called Reefer Madness, and he caused hysteria, and he lied. Now, carrying forward, there are moneyed interests. The alcohol lobby, the paper lobby, the cotton lobby, they do not want marijuana to be legalized, nor do the pharmaceutical companies want it to be legalized, because it is something that you can grow and use without needing any corporate help. It is something that they cannot monopolize. It is the same reason that we're having a hard time getting renewable energy put forward, because the moneyed interests have taken over our government. With respect to the opioid crisis, here I am again with a specific policy program to deal with it. Number one, if you're a pharmaceutical company and you are selling an opioid-related product, whether it's fentanyl, whether it's Oxycontin or Percocet, you will no longer be able to make a profit on that product. You must sell it at cost. Number two, if you have a record because you were convicted of marijuana possession, your record will be expunged as a matter of law the day that my administration legalizes marijuana, because there are people in society who have been marginalized, who've been kept out of their right to vote, who've been denied employment because they had possession of a safe and harmless plant. It is not a gateway drug to other drugs. Breast milk and baby formula are a gateway drug to heroin. Do we outlaw them? Because it seems that everyone addicted to heroin started with baby formula or breast milk. And that is the logic that Chris Christie is using to say that marijuana is a gateway drug to opioids. You know what a gateway to opioids is? Telling a child that in your drug abuse resistance education plan that marijuana is the same as cocaine and heroin. It is not. And when you lie to people, you do things that you encourage them. They try marijuana and they say, well, if this is the same as cocaine and heroin, then it is safe and harmless. So we have lied to the people. As far as the drug legalization and then the war on drugs, remember, drugs themselves aren't the problem. It is the gang activity that results from the decriminalization. We tried this with alcohol and we got Al Capone. He was a two-bit gangster with no truck. Now, he has a lot of money and a lot of territory to protect, and he becomes the mob. The same thing is going on with prohibition on other drugs. It should be entirely regulated, entirely controlled, and profit should be taken out of the hands of the pharmaceutical company.
Recently in Ocean County, a worker it was actually a corrections officer, was actually arrested for dealing heroin, and she walked. And recently, with this bail reform, which is disastrous financially for counties and dangerous, somebody had 800 bricks of heroin, and he was out of jail the next day. Well, this state it is long overdue, because recreational marijuana is the key to New Jersey being number one in all the right things, having revenue. But most importantly, to answer the question specifically, look at this poor guy was growing 10 plants, and he's going to jail in Ocean County. He was convicted for 11 years. Yet, with Christie's new bail reform, people have 50 bricks or 800 bricks of heroin. The next day they're getting out of jail, and then they're letting them go because it's a first-time offense. You have to be kidding me. So I'm completely for recreational marijuana, and I was the first candidate to propose it when it wasn't popular in September of 2015, being the first candidate to announce out of both sides. Medicinal marijuana, as governor, I will eliminate the $200 club card that you have to pay, which you don't have to pay for OxyContin, but you have to pay for marijuana. And that's for cancer victims and veterans. 2, I would eliminate the sales tax on marijuana for medicinal marijuana, because they don't do that to OxyContin as well. It's unfair, and you know why? Opponents that I'm running against, they're financed by the lobbyists
Mr. Rillo?
and by the insurance industry, and that insurance industry is the opiates, and it's disgusting. And they voted against PTSD for veterans, and you can find out who that opponent is. I'm not going to give him name recognition.
Okay, thank you. I had a good audience question, if I may, and if Commissioner Rogers. I actually don't know the issue well enough to really form a good question about it, but I think that you all will, which is, what will you do regarding Atlantic City struggling? What do you see as the major problem about it, and what will you do about it?
To begin with, the state of New Jersey should have never got involved in the Atlantic City mess. It is up to the people of Atlantic City to solve their own problems. There is too much government intrusion. Too much tax dollars are going into trying to solve problems like they have there in Atlantic City. The city should have went bankrupt and then let the people of that city choose elected officials who will be responsible and accountable for their actions. Atlantic City is not my problem. It is not anyone's problem but the citizens of Atlantic City. And I trust that they would know how to deal with that problem without government intrusion. Thank you.
Well, I guess going back in time, seeing what has happened with a city that was relying on gambling, we probably should have let Vito Corleone or the Gambino family run Atlantic City, and it would have wound up being much more successful than the state has managed to turn into what it's turned it into. That should have been built into Mecca for families to come to, with indoor water parks and golf courses and investing money in the community and new housing. But instead, all the state did, and our past governors and legislature, was suck over $1 billion a year out of the city and leave the city to founder. The state should not be involved in trying to rebuild Atlantic City now. They certainly shouldn't be involved in selling off the state's water supply or any other municipal resources. The state should turn control of Atlantic City back to the mayor and the council for them to manage their way out of their predicament.
I see it differently. I see Atlantic City as a harbinger for the rest of the state. And as governor, I will bail out Atlantic City. I will make sure that they have adequate police, fire, and teachers in their school system, firefighters to protect their populace, and police to protect people from crime. But I will also do another thing. I will make sure that Atlantic City is not completely dependent on gambling in order to make its resources and to move forward as a city. I will bring high-speed rail into Atlantic City that comes from New York City and Philadelphia and possibly Boston and Washington, D.C. and Trenton, so that people will go there easily and not have to deal with the various issues that involve long travel. There will also be, in the beginning of the administration, there'll be certain areas where marijuana can be grown and cultivated, and I will make Atlantic City one of those zones where every job is a $15 an hour minimum wage job, and from the seed to the stem to the bakery to the candy factory to everything that you do with it, whether you harvest it, whether you trim it, whether you grow it, whether you package it, all of the wholesale operations and all of the baking of the baked goods and all of the candy factories for the edibles that come from that will emanate from cities like Atlantic City, Camden, Patterson, Newark. And all of the jobs will be $15 an hour minimum wage jobs, and we will stimulate the economy in that fashion.
Mr. Rullo?
I do want to recognize New Jersey Safe. This is with the nurses. And I think we should give them a round of applause for being here. And as the bill sets, and I've been studying it, and I agree with a lot of it as governor.
They're actually going to have a question next. So
So moving on. I basically would remove the pilot program. I think it's a failure. I think it's a burden. Additionally, 2 years ago, started fighting against North Jersey casinos. I am the only candidate who ran a campaign against it. On Facebook, I didn't wait to see what was going to happen with it. It wasn't popular with North Jersey. I'm running the whole state. So people in North Jersey that are for North Jersey casinos weren't really happy that I was pushing that. But the other thing, too, is I believe that the murder rate is starting to swing towards Newark with all the murders. And we need to address that. And as the governor, I will work with not only the attorney general, but the state police chief and make sure that we have a presence there, because that's so important that not only do you need consumer confidence, but you need consumers to be confident that they're not going to get their heads blown off on the wrong street in Atlantic City. Additionally, we need to make some changes. For example, bring in off-Broadway. Why? Because we don't have to open up subsidies. And basically with off-Broadway, there's not union. You're not dealing with all the state incentives that you all are going to have to pay for. And it could be a huge district that we could bring in there. We lost a really big opportunity with Buster Brown's or whatever it's called with the arcade. That's a really huge thing. We need to bring more restaurants like that, big chains. Make it more like Disney rather than, the same old thing over and over and over again. In addition, like I said, off-Broadway is very important as well. One last thing. The South Jersey transportation system is basically a retirement center like Port Authority, and they retire all their dons of politics there. And I will address that. I believe there's corruption there, and we need to face that. Thank you.
All right, we have three more of your questions. So we have someone here that, if you're okay with it, that they would like to ask a question. So I'm going to give the mic to this lady right here.
Hi, my name is Kate McLaughlin. I'm a nurse here in New Jersey. There's 110,000 nurses in New Jersey. We take care of millions of patients a year in over 60 facilities. So one of my questions is for the past 15 years, every Senate session, there has been a bill for safe staffing. The most recent bill was brought up on February 8th, 2016, co-sponsored by Senator Vitale and Senator Weinstein. This bill, like many other bills, have never actually gotten a vote. This most recent bill hasn't even gone to committee because of a lack of support. Now, I can attest of being an ER nurse and an ICU nurse and a couple of different ICUs and ERs in New Jersey. The staffing crisis is real. We are working with very sick patients. We are seeing our numbers that are going up and up. There are times that there are ICU nurses caring for up to 15 patients each. It is unsafe. As hospitals merge, we're seeing that we are having cutbacks in staffing, where we're taking more and more patients. Will you, as a governor, support the safe staffing bills that have come up? The same type of bill that came into effect in California 15 years ago that provide a safe staffing law. Now, I know that this is a very scary idea because of revenue, but in California, they had less falls, they had less infections, they had less incidences that would be considered non-reimbursable incidents. Knowing that, what had happened was the revenue actually went up. So will you support safe staffing?
Absolutely. And I won't wait for the legislature to act, because as governor, a lot of people aren't aware of this. The governor has control over administrative regulations. And because the statute is the existing statute on patient safety and patient care is so broad, you can craft administrative regulations under the code that the Department of Health and Senior Services has control over and your commissioner has control over, so that if the staffing level, if you determine that it's going to be no more than 6 to 1 for any particular nurse or better in an ICU, then you can turn around through the governor's office, through administrative regulation, and ratchet down what is considered safe because the statute is so broad. So I wouldn't wait for the legislature. The problem is New Jersey is profoundly corrupt, and a lot of the hospitals, the Sanzaris of the world, the people that are making billions of dollars on patient care and on health insurance, they have control over our legislature. I'm a Democrat, and I'm telling you that my party is profoundly corrupt. They should be the party of people. They should be the party of labor. They should be the party of protection. But they have turned into a machine that collects campaign cash. And unfortunately, you folks don't make enough money to compete with the people that you work for. Unfortunately, a lot of you nurses are not unionized, so you're being abused at every level. I can't tell you how many nurses I know that not only are they being abused, but if they speak out about some safety issue within their hospital, they're subject to harassment, retaliation, intimidation, and termination. And under my watch, those people will actually be protected, not by having to go to court and file a lawsuit, but the Attorney General will come in and lock down your administrator. Because what's happening is there are administrators who've never been involved in patient care running around with clipboards telling you how to do your job and telling you you're spending too much time with a patient. And I trust you, not the administrator with the clipboard. And under my watch, that ends.
Mr. Rula.
One of the biggest interests that I had in this issue is one of my biggest plans for veterans is that when Donald Trump is president, and he is president, and when I'm governor, our veterans are going to get free care in this state, in these hospitals, just like illegal immigrants are, and I think it's very unfair and construed. So therefore, if you look at the VA and you look at the situation that's going on in the VA, it sounds a lot like what's going on in the VA. And I think what I've drawn on my conclusion so far, and I'm still in-depthly researching it, and I'm swaying towards your cause, is that you look at the chiropractors who are now basically being pushed out of the state of New Jersey. Why? Because the AMA is in the pocket of all the politicians. Look at the same thing with vapor, where people want to quit smoking in this state. And what happens is now Shantex, which owns all of the legislators, are all trying to push that out. Well, I see the nurses as an organization that is not in the pocket like the hospitals are and the AMA and all these other big organizations. And you are on the front lines, period. And I've done some research, and I would absolutely not only agree with it, but I think that in order for the veterans to transition into the hospitals, as I will do as governor, and state aid will be on the bargaining table with that, with the hospitals, we need to make sure that the most important front line is taken care of. And I do believe, and I have witnessed it recently, one of my friends who was in the hospital, some of these hospitals are run like a circus, and it's because they're understaffed, and it is unsafe. And I reach out, and I thank you for being here.
Not only do I have police officers in my family, I have nurses in my family. And I can tell you many times we used to sit around the table and wonder how on earth do we get anything done when we have not only government, but those administrators and those bureaucrats on our backs, making ridiculous regulations where you can't do your job. I am absolutely going to make sure as governor that you will be able to do your job without interference. There should be minimum staffing levels. You know what's best. I don't know what's best, and I will support that. I will support it because of what you have there. New Jersey, patient safety first. It's like with police officers. New Jersey, citizen safety first. Get the bureaucrats out of the way. Let you do your job. So, yeah, I support you 100%. We're living it, at least in my household. Thank you.
So this issue is all about single-payer health care to me, which means preventive care, whether it's prenatal preventive care, whether it's enough staff and nurses in a hospital to prevent the care and further problems from developing. So yes, absolutely, we should have the right staffing in all of our facilities. Now, the way we do this through single-payer healthcare, it's because we remove the insurance companies from the business, and we have more money available to staff properly at hospitals and medical facilities. So yes, I do support this. Thank you.
Okay, so our next question is money in politics. So we are all here tonight pretty related to money in politics, instead of being in there. So what are, this one is, we'll start with Councilman Zinna. What are your thoughts on money in politics and the effects and its effects on our democracy in New Jersey, and how would you address the issue as governor? And I'd like you to also add in corruption to that.
Well, the system we have is completely corrupt. It's designed to be corrupt. It's not illegal. If you write enough checks to county chairs, whether they're Democrats or Republicans of our 21 counties, you get to have the county line, either on the Republican side or the Democratic side. The county chairs don't even need to have a vote amongst their members. They can pick and choose who their candidates are going to be. It's all about the cash. It is very wrong. Citizens United, where the Supreme Court decision that basically said corporations are people, is fundamentally flawed, and it's basically a lie. Corporations are not people. People are people. Only one of the ways I would address it is only an individual who is eligible to vote should be allowed to contribute money to a candidate for public office. And there should be a limit to the amount of money we're all able to spend on our elections. Some people raise this as a First Amendment issue. It's not a First Amendment issue. It's no different than you can't scream fire in a crowded theater. There needs to be a limit to how much money we spend on our campaigns so that only the voters can control what's happening. Thank you.
Well, the question was, what are the effects of money in politics? And the effects of money in politics are the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, the middle class become poor. And that's what's happening. What is my solution? Well, at the state level, I'm going to fully fund public elections so that nobody can give money to anybody. Each candidate will get a budget. Each candidate will have to live within the same means of the same budget. Right now, candidates in that building are getting a few $1 million from our treasury to run for governor. Some of them can use their own money. Some of them are using state money. But in my view, the cost of not funding elections through the state treasury is significant, because you get situations like nurses who are caring for 15 and 20 patients at a time. You get situations like the Port Authority where somebody can use his office to extort money from somebody else and get away with it. You get decisions that are being made day in and day out that have nothing to do with the will of the people and everything to do with the people who are running the corporations. It used to be in this country that if you wanted to make a profit, you would innovate a product, you would provide a service, or you would sell something. Now you open a super PAC, you hire a lobbyist, or you donate directly to the campaign, and you then shift the burden from your corporation onto the working people and the poor people of this state. And that is entirely the result of this need to keep funding this election cycle. In order to get elected right now, you need millions of dollars. And it's not just the governor's office. It's every assemblyman who's up for re-election. It's every senator who's up for re-election. Go look at who's contributing to your mayor and council right now, and then see who has a development plan to overdevelop your community and stress your school system. It is the people donating to the mayor. So if every mayor's race is run by a $5,000 budget from the candidates that are running,
Bill, what will you do about money, these things?
I will make it illegal to spend money on a campaign. You will have to use the budget that the state provides you, and you cannot donate to a candidate because the candidate is going to have to live within the means and the budget that every other candidate has. It does two things. It, number one, eliminates the ability to bribe your way into legislation or overdevelopment, and number two, it gets you to see what a candidate can do with a limited resource and how far they can stretch a buck.
Okay, great. And I want to emphasize, what will you do to cure this problem, Mr. Rullo?
One of the most corrupt things that I've seen in this cycle or this circus, and I have been all throughout New Jersey, east, south, north, and west, and the same thing that's in common is that my opponent, Guindano, Silent Kim, basically cut a deal about a year and a half ago, and she was basically the chosen one before the deal was even cut. I announced a year and a half earlier than her, 1 year earlier than every single candidate running on both sides. I have won 10 out of 10 online polls, 5 separate sources. We have resonated across the state of New Jersey, but it doesn't matter. The rigging that has gone on in these conventions, it got to the point where it became comical. And what they do is they'll go to the polls and they vote like zombies. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And that's what they do. What I've come to one conclusion is that this debate tonight, shame on Stockton University for even being part of restriction of the First Amendment. They did not have to have that debate here. I want to thank all of my supporters who were just calling Stockton. But also, only in New Jersey do you have to spend, let's rephrase it, only in New Jersey do you receive matching funds from your taxpayer money and get excluded because you decide not to take the matching funds from the taxpayers. That is the most corrupt thing I've ever heard. And as governor, I will implement a policy so that everyone can be heard at a debate like this if they don't take taxpayer money. That is the only fair thing to do. Again, both sides here, I want to thank them for being here, because without everyone's support here on both sides of the aisle, we would have never been able to do this debate. And quoting several media sources, they, again, have trust in the democracy system, that Democrats and Republicans can work together to formulate and to have a debate and a discussion, a successful debate and discussion that I think this rigged, corrupt debate is second to. Thank you.
Okay, so Commissioner Rogers, you have the final answer of the night.
Adams, Lincoln, Jefferson, our founding fathers would be rolling over in their graves if they saw what was taking place tonight. I'm sure that, for lack of a better illustration, they sat outside the palace of King George and had to do what we're doing because they were shut out. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the power. They didn't have the political influence that they needed to get into the palace of King George and to state their case. In my view, you have 4 gentlemen here, Democrat, Republican, who did something that a lot of people did not want done tonight, and that was to bring democracy at its finest, to give the people of New Jersey an opportunity to state their case and to ask for their vote. With regard to the contributions, yes, there should be a cap on spending and a cap on collecting. That's how you put an end to corruption. If you think you're going to give $25,000 to a candidate who's having a dinner and that filet mignon is going to be a little better, then you're dreaming. That's for access. That's for influence. So we need to go down a road where it's going to be fair and equitable for every single future candidate. And let me end with this. The root cause to all our problems, no matter what we talked about tonight, begins in the home, begins in the family. One of the things I'm going to do as governor is to reinvigorate the Office of Faith-Based Initiatives. And I'm going to call the pastors and the priests and the ministers and the rabbis and the clergy across this state to join me in helping solve our problems, from the living rooms, from the kitchens, from the dens, from those rooms in every house in every city across this state. Because there's something those clergy people can do that no elected official can do. And that's get into the heart, the soul, and the spirit of every citizen of this state. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so I don't think so, unless everybody wants closing statement. Yep. Closing statement. Okay, so we are going, that was the final question. So we're going to go with brief closing statements. So why don't we just start down from the end. Go ahead.
We just heard fireworks. I think we were all ready to duck. I know I'm not wearing a bulletproof vest, guys. I most important want to thank each and every one of my opponents on both sides of the aisle. I think that the fact that this happened this evening is history. It's a great thing for New Jersey. People are sick and tired of being sick and tired, not only of the corruption, but at being number one in all the wrong things because you have the same old every single year and the same old corruption. I believe that this state will see better days. I believe that this state will drain the swamp in Trenton, will drain the swamps even locally in the towns that are corrupt. And as governor, one of the main things I will do is I will direct my attorney general. I will have him work with the state police as well as local law enforcement, and we need to sweep the corruption out of the state of New Jersey. If we don't start, we're going to bankrupt this state. Mayors, council people, county government, all levels of government, it all equals one thing: higher property taxes, and they're giving fat cats, and they're giving all the special interest all of your money. And we need a change in this state. If we don't have a change soon, this state is going to end up going bankrupt. So most importantly, I want to thank everyone who has taken their time out this evening for this special debate, a debate that was substantive, had a lot of great issues, a lot of things were discussed. We didn't all agree with each other, but I think that New Jersey has a better idea of what the Democrats on one side and what the Republicans on the other believe in. Thank you. Go to rulo2017.com. Make sure you donate, and donate often. Thank you, and God bless you. God bless New Jersey, and God bless America.
Thank you all for the opportunity that you've given me here this evening. Ronald Reagan had a dream. He called it a shining city on a hill. As governor, I want to make New Jersey that shining city on a hill. We must never forget, no matter what problems we have and challenges we have in the future, that we are the greatest country on the face of the earth. And indeed, New Jersey is a great, great state. In fact, probably greater than the other 49. We need to keep in mind that we need to thank a lot of people who have made this country great and this state great. Obviously, our nurses are here. We need to thank them and the medical people who have saved so many lives. Our police officers, our state troopers, our corrections officers, our park rangers. I could go on and on and on, and thank God for our school teachers. Without them, we wouldn't have a country. We would not have a future. So I'm going to ask you to join me in making the third star on Old Glory the brightest star on that flag. And let's together go on that journey to truly make this state that shining city on a hill that Ronald Reagan dreamed of. Thank you so much. God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you for inviting me up here tonight. One thing I want to say in closing, it's 2017, and it's time for 2017 candidate. We cannot keep electing the same establishment corrupt candidates and expect a different result. As the people of the state, we need to wake up and realize what's going on. And when we go to the ballot box, I'm Mark Zinna. If you don't want to vote for me, that's okay. Vote for one of these three gentlemen up here then. But do not vote for the people, the millionaires, the Goldman Sachs billionaires that are in this building who represent the same bad decisions we have been making over the past 20 or 30 years. Again, if you don't like me, pick one of these fine gentlemen that I've had the privilege to discuss things with this evening. And thank you for coming, and have a great night.
Gentlemen, I have to say this was really a good time. I had fun. It was nice to meet you, and I'm glad that we put this on. We definitely disagree on a lot of issues, but you've been gentlemen. And I just want to tell you, unlike Mark, if you're not going to vote for me, then stay home, all right? Because I only want people that are voting for me to come out and vote. But in all seriousness, and I'm just stating a fact, I told you that I was going to answer the questions and provide solutions tonight, and I did that. I came up with comprehensive policy proposals on each and every question that was asked, and I answered you directly. And that's not happening lately. I told you where I'm going to get the money. I told you how I'm going to get the money. I told you what I'm going to spend. I told you I can't do certain things that other candidates are promising. I don't know. If you want to believe the things that you're being told, even though the math isn't there, then I'm sorry. you're the part of the problem. You are part of the problem now, because when somebody comes to you in all earnestness and tells you he wants your vote and tells you that he can't give you everything you want, but he will do his level best to give you the following things which we need, you have an obligation to pick the candidate telling the truth. The truth matters. We have had 8 years of a lying, manipulative, self-aggrandizing person who has insisted on being dishonest. Now we have him on steroids in the White House. We have a dishonest, disingenuous con man running the United States of America, and the answer to these things is not to hate and not to fight. It is love and peace and the truth. And I will give you my love, I will fight for peace, and I will tell you the truth. And that's all I can do, and I offer myself to you to serve you. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, may I take the liberty to thank you. You were wonderful. What a professional job, folks.
Thank you.
And your staff.
Thank you very much. I really
Let's not
appreciate it.
forget the PA guy.
Yeah, the support
PA guy.
Let's hear it for the PA guy. He brought everything here. He's on our
The
team.
cameraman.
And Ben behind the camera, thank you, gentlemen, for
Cameraman.
letting me do this. I really appreciate it, especially Bill for inviting me. So yes, I'm Jeff with Citizens Media TV. We are live streaming this, and I look forward to our next thing together. Good night, everybody.